Yeah, welcome to Manchester Tech Journey. So I'm Mark Collins. So I'm a director of Manchester Tech recruitment team. Been in Manchester that year and a half now. One of the reasons I wanted to do this was to really give a platform to technical leaders in the Manchester area, not just to talk about their journey, but also talk about the Manchester Tech community. So thank you very much for joining us today, mate.
Welcome.
Don't know if you want to do a bit of a brief intro on yourself.
Okay, so I'm Matthew White. I'm Principal Delivery Manager for a company called ZUHLKE. So I work in consultancy, but my background stems all the way from engineering all the way through to analysis and product.
Nice. Well, thanks for joining us today. So obviously I know just done a bit of a brief intro, but just keen to understand a bit more around what your sort of current role is at the minute and what that entails, because it's the job title can be quite broad, kind of.
So the world of delivery,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I think when people normally talk about things like delivery, I think the first thing that gets into people's heads is more project management.
Yeah.
But I'd say the delivery is a little bit more than that. So it's thinking about more than just the project delivery. It's thinking about the engineering side as well. So how you're actually going to get your product through to live. So it's quite a broad role. But I think also working within consultancy, also having to work with lots of different stakeholders, also having to be quite commercial as well in terms of focus.
Yeah, so it's quite a broad role rather than just the traditional siloed into a different area. But I think just to start us off then, so keen to understand how you got into tech. What was your sort of starting point? Because I appreciate everyone has got a different path, which makes it super interesting.
Absolutely. I'm in my 40s, so I was of that certain age where the home computer was king. So one of my first experiences with technology was learning how to program on ZX Spectrum. So like a lot of kids back in the 80s. But in terms of like making it a career, that was actually quite a difficult choice because I was kind of torn between going into more of a sort of technical and software role, or whether to go into a business studies and marketing type environment. And I think I probably chose wisely. I went down the technical route, so I chose to go to university, study software engineering. But throughout my studies at school and college as well, I've always maintained that focus as well on the commerciality of software. So trying to blend business and technology.
And what made you? Well, how did you come to that decision then? Because it's for two very different paths, fork in the road, I suppose.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Probably look back now and it looked sexier. I think as a career option. I think technology is moving so fast, and there's always something new to learn. And I think I've got quite an inquisitive mind. So I think if you kind of like that chaos, you like the idea that you're working in an environment and in an industry that's always going through change, then you're always going to be delighted because you're always going to be learning something new. There's always a new discovery. I guess probably with business, it's a lot more stable. It's a lot more sort of well structured. So for me, I kind of really did enjoy that sort of the idea of always constantly learning, but also it's quite a nice play space as well. It's nice to see something come to life. So when you get hands on the keyboard and you can actually interact and you can actually make the computer respond, that's quite a cool thing to do.
I suppose you never really solve the problem. There's always another one around the corner. There's another, but it's said with technology evolving, and so the way with it, you've got like, if you're said like so much yourself inquisitive and enjoy problem solving, then there's always more to do rather than a final end.
Yeah, and early in your career, you're creating more problems as well. And I think that again is also part of the challenge, which also makes it quite fun, but also quite stressful. I think when you first starting, I think probably one of the natural things is to assume that you can learn everything really, really quickly, but actually you're not going to. You're going to learn quite evolutionary. You're going to basically adapt as you sort of play around and you see how the computer responds and you start to learn new tech.
Yeah. And how has the journey been then from university student going to the first job to starting in tech to the leadership role you are in now?
So I think coming out of university, wasn't quite sure what to expect. I think university it is very academic, therefore it teaches you and tries to prepare you for work, but nothing really prepares you. So I think what was really, really interesting was you go through university and they teach about all these different frameworks, all these different methodologies and things. You get out into the real world and no one implements them. So we were taught stuff that was already legacy by the time we left university. So having to go into that a real world working environment and sort of learn almost from scratch. You've got some background, you've got some skills, but actually what you're really sort of trying to figure out is the environment that you're working in. So it's not so much about the technology, it's the types of organizations that you're going to be working in and their dynamics. So if you go and work for a really, really small organization, everyone kind of does a bit of everything. Whereas if you go and work for a larger company, then
You're a
you might
cog.
be a little bit more, you might be a bit more siloed. So what made it quite interesting for me was my first job was actually working in contract laboratories.
Okay.
So it wasn't just learning how to write software, learning how to interact with people. It was actually learning science as well. So having to go down to labs and play with chemistry and start to learn how machines work. So that was quite cool. But I think over time, I went through a couple of different jobs in the engineering space, writing code as a software engineer. And then what I really wanted to do was spend more time sort of working on projects where basically I had a little bit more say in terms of what was being created. So I moved across into analysis. So it's more how we can sort of solve the problems, bring stuff to life. So that we weren't working on projects that we knew from the off that they weren't going to go anywhere. We had a bit more opportunity to sort of shape things and make sure we're going to build something that's going to be successful. And I guess after that, it was, and I enjoyed doing that for a while. It's really great working sort of in business analysis role, various different organizations in digital space. But again, still lots of frustrations, teams not necessarily being able to give their all and do their best possible job. And I think the key thing for me then was kind of making the decision between, did I want to go more down the product route, so I can follow that thread about product development and product design, or did I want to do something else and work, create a platform for my teams where they could succeed? So I chose the latter. So I chose to move into a delivery role. And I think when you take on sort of a bit of power and responsibility, you get to choose what you do with it. And for me, it was about how I could give it back. So what I could do that would enable the teams to have a bit more autonomy, a bit more say about how they work and how they can optimize and try and make work more fun.
And how did you get that first leadership position then? How did it, when was like the turning point? Were you sort of, because you asked for it, were you put into it? Because it's always a bit of an interesting, whether someone goes, you're the best in the team, so naturally you're going to lead, or whether you go, I want to lead, so can you give me the opportunity?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting question. I think there's probably two answers there. I think the first time that I was put in a sort of leadership position was more in a soft sort of lead position, which was acting as Scrum Master, that role. But also having more of a T-shaped role, so doing some analysis, making sure that a team was unimpeded and able to deliver, and that was great. But there was no sort of managerial sort of side to that, so no line management or actually looking after a team in that sense. So that was something that was given to me because I had an interest. I was passionate about wanting to do things different, trial different techniques. And the organization I was with at the time wanted to bring in more agile ways of working. They wanted to play around with things like Scrum and Kanban. So it was great to sort of jump in and give it a go. I actually really, really enjoyed it. And then later on came an opportunity where there's an internal role that was available for delivery. And I kind of had to make that decision. I was really enjoying what I was doing, but actually, could I take this opportunity and do something different with it? So for me, that was it. It was a case of applying internally and managed to get that role. And then that's when you really start to learn about people, because now all of a sudden it's like, it's not about you anymore. It's like you've now got line management. You've got a team of like 6 or 7 people, and they've all got very different needs. And it's not just about the technical. There's also the personal and the people needs.
Yeah, and I remember when I first went into my first leadership role, I had a big case of like maybe imposter syndrome, where 1 minute you're part of the team and then you're not, and you have to treat people differently. It's quite a weird experience.
There's definitely an element of that, and I think when you're given that responsibility, ultimately an organization has given you a leadership role because they want to get an outcome. So they want to improve a product or service, or they're always looking to get the best possible value from that team. And I think the hard thing really and it was always difficult first, in the first couple of years of taking on that responsibility, was realizing very quickly that you can't be everyone's friend. So, and you have to establish some boundaries, because you have got managerial responsibility. You are there professionally, so you want your teams to have fun. You want to have, you want to be able to do their best. You got to create an environment which enables that to happen, where you can be respected. But yeah, you can't necessarily be loved by everyone, and that could be quite hard at times.
Yeah. And is there anything you would have done differently for when you look back, and or anything in particular that stands out that you would have maybe done differently when you're having that transition from maybe individual contributor to leadership and you're responsible for teams and projects?
I think probably the one thing that would have been more beneficial is having sort of a bit more time with a mentor to sort of prep for that. Because I think going in, even though you think you understand what delivery is about and you think you understand what team leadership is going to be about, it's quite a shock when all of a sudden you find yourself in a very different role. And you talk about in the imposter syndrome, and that's very prevalent. All of a sudden it's like the skills that you've relied on and done really well with, the skills are now changed. It's a different dynamic. So I think the key thing for me would be, if people are looking to make that switch, is to sort of find out more and probably get some mentorship or shadow what the leaders really do. Start to find out a bit more about their challenges before launching straight in. I think it looks on the face of it to be very easy.
Yeah.
But the first time that you're challenged with having to deal with something like a disciplinary, that can be quite a shock, and it's quite difficult to deal with. Or if teams just aren't performing, and how are you going to try and get them back on track? So there's so many different variables, so many different things and different situations. I think having more time with someone that's actually doing that role would be really beneficial.
Yeah, and I think having those uncomfortable conversations as well is something that you don't have to do, and people naturally don't do them. And obviously not shameless plug for the leadership group that you're a part of. I think that having something like that around, and I'm not sure if you would have had any access to a group like that when you were sort of going through the sort of that transition into more of a leadership position, but like there are events, there are groups, there are meetups out there that you can go and get exposure to people who would have been there and done the exact same thing that you would have done. So if you want to talk more about.
Exactly. I mean, and that is the core really of Tech Leads Northwest. Is to put something back into the community. So there's a group of us that organize those events, and we all do it for one purpose. We all want to give something back into the community in Manchester. We want to help other people on their journey into leadership, because it's not easy. And I think building out that network of people that are on a similar journey or have got that experience already, it gives a great melting pot where people can learn, they can share. You're going to find lots of common challenges. So the best way you can sort of learn quickly is, get together with like-minded people, have those difficult conversations, listen to that, listen to the feedback, and listen to how other people may have done things, and learn from one another.
Nice. And then aside from that, as a bit of advice, because leading into my next question, do you have any advice for someone looking to get to a similar position of yourself, maybe who are sort of looking to follow that path? Anything that you would they'd be worthwhile them knowing, aside from go to events and meetups and join Tech Leaders Northwest?
Yeah, I think if anyone's wanting to get into leadership, I think the first question is why.
Yeah.
So what is it you actually think it's going to bring to your life? Why is it you want to do this? Because if it is a case of thinking that you're going to get some sort of power, then that's probably is probably not going to be the best way to sort of go into leadership. Because management is one thing, leadership is something very different. You want people to follow, you want to set a direction, you want people to come with you on that journey. So it's how can you create great environments basically where people can do their best work and they can shine. So it's not about you. You're there as an enabler. You're there to help other people to grow and do their best possible work.
Yeah, nice. So how long have you been in Manchester?
Okay, so I've been in Manchester now for 7 years.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Where were you before?
So born and raised in Warwickshire, then moved across to South Yorkshire, where I went to university and decided to stay there for a bit. Then to North Wales, and then due to work, finally ended up making the big move to Manchester.
Because you did say you swore you'd never live or work in Manchester years ago. What was the situation there?
So yeah, it's true. So first encounter in Manchester was 1998 for a job interview. So having got off the train, it's probably quite a bleak day. It's a very different city. It's very
Like
grey.
today.
Yeah, unlike today. And it just didn't inspire. I didn't find it appealing, and also not getting a job as well probably didn't help me. But no, it's one of those where I think, like a lot of the big cities, I was never a big sort of city fan. But then I came back to Manchester in 2009, and I just couldn't believe just how much in that short period of time the city's transformed, and how much investment and how much cleaner it looked.
Yeah. So what do you mean by sort of transform then? Any particular like examples of like the then and now, or from what you noticed?
Yeah, I think if anyone goes and looks at some of the older photos, and I've done a compare and contrast. The overall skyline, everything, just the amount of investment that's occurred in such a short period is quite noticeable. And that was back in 2009, and roll forward 16 years, and every single year it's grown and grown and grown again. So it is a very up and coming and modern city.
Yeah, it absolutely blew my mind, the then and now picture of Deansgate from 20 years ago to now. And that's not a massive long period of time in the sense of the whole, in the sense of a city itself is unbelievable. So for the last 7 years of being in Manchester then, what has it been like seeing the city grow and develop, and particularly within sort of, but not just in the sense of the skyline and the bars and restaurants, but also in with regards to the tech community?
So I think the tech community has just gone from strength to strength. I think Manchester seems to have accumulated its own gravity, and it's a place where people want to be. I think if you were to go back to sort of the 2000s, then London was the place to go. So if you wanted to be earning pretty good money, you wanted to work on really interesting projects, then that's kind of where you would go. And I think that seems to have shifted. I think there's a lot of really great companies in Manchester. There's been some great sort of digital startups. There's some fintechs, and I think what that's doing is that's bringing a lot of different types of people into the area. It's not just about people writing code. Got some fabulous designers as well. So all the different tech communities are thriving. And yeah, it's been interesting to watch just how quickly things have accelerated.
And why do you think these companies move into Manchester, choose Manchester though? It's probably just two sides of the question. What do you feel makes Manchester tech scene so special?
I think, like a lot of cities, I think it is down to the fact that once you've started to get that burgeoning population of skills, okay, more companies start to spot that, and they start to realize that they can tap into that. And the more companies that then start to grow, the more people will want to naturally gravitate. So I think it is great that we have created a tech hub away from London. We have managed to move away from just being like a major city for technical development. I think
it's done that one. Yeah, no, I agree. It feels like it's a very exciting time to be in Manchester. I'm not just saying it because like I'm biased because I'm here now, but like there's been so much growth, so much development. But the conversation I have with people across the city is that it's only just getting started. The years before were bending the foundations, and now it's about just go from strep to strep with businesses moving. I read something the other day, Puma moving to Manchester, and that's all within the creative field. So you've got the Sister Project, which is multi-billion-pound investment with SciTech and the university. So it's it's just a good time to be here. And what do you feel Manchester does differently to like the other tech hubs like London and Silicon Valley and the ones in Europe, across the US and the UK?
It's Manchester. It does things different. So it's got its own vibe, and I think I think the key thing about Manchester is, and not just within the tech community itself, but just more broadly, it is quite a friendly city. And I think it is bringing in quite a lot of inquisitive minds. I think it's getting some great skills, but we are seeing a lot more people starting to move back into the meetup scene as well. So I think that's a great sign that something that was lost under the COVID years is now starting to spring back. There's starting to become more and more of an appetite. But although in some ways you can also see that there's probably so many meetups, people might start to get fatigued again, or a sport for choice. But But it's nice that people are now starting to come back out and they're wanting to learn from one another and recreate those communities.
I think it's just about having the option. No one's forced to go to anything. I took a bit of a step back recently because I just knackered from going to so many. But there's really welcoming communities. You don't have to be part of that group. I think for me, the main thing is as long as you're going and add it and wanting to add value rather than take the value, then you're going to be welcomed in, and it's a very like collaborative environment, I suppose, across Manchester. And as you said, everyone I met really has been very nice and welcoming and wanted to be able to help other people out if you care about Manchester.
I think most people want Manchester to thrive. So it's in everyone's interest that you want to create, and hold on to that community. You want it to be successful. So I think everyone's in that spirit, which is really good.
Nice. And then what do you think makes us unique? Manchester. Yeah, I know you said it's Manchester does things differently, but is there anything that like stands out to you?
I think a lot of it is driven, probably by the culture. So, historically, it has become a cultural hub. And I think that's quite a big draw. And I think that's also one of the things that the city does really, really well is there's always something to do.
Yeah. Too much sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So, whether it's theatre, arts, it's music, there's so much going on. So it's not just the fact that it's a tech scene, it's also a creative bubble as well, which I think is quite cool. But what probably makes it a bit different from somewhere like London is its size. The fact that it's, it does have a core, it has a centre, it makes it very easy to get to and very easy for people to sort of congregate and have things like meetups and bring a lot of organisations in close proximity.
And there's a big catchment area for people living in Greater Manchester as well. I would say the transport's great. The trams are good. Love the tram. The trains are the best. But there's a big catchment for area for people in town. You don't have to live right in the centre, which I know some other cities have. And you touched it then with regards to the culture. Just going back onto that, how would you describe the culture to somebody who's never heard of Manchester or been to Manchester, which would be quite hard. So you touched on the culture. How would you describe the culture of Manchester for someone who'd never been here, never heard of us? Which I know would be quite hard because everyone has. But yeah, how would you describe this?
Okay, so I'd say that the thing I like about Manchester is it has that sort of northern cheek. It doesn't take itself too seriously, which is great. So you can get quite a good fun vibe. But I think also the tech culture as well. There's a lot of interesting stuff that's happening. There's a lot of bright people are coming in, a lot of ideas being bounced around, and I think that's something that is definitely exciting to be around. So got a proper melting pot of different types of industries, different types of people coming in, all bringing their own ideas.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it just feels like an exciting place to be around. And I was chatting to someone the other day, and they said the difference between then and now is there's some really serious business people in here who know not just what they want and how to do it as well, and they want Manchester to thrive, as you touched on as well. And then, obviously, you've seen 1998 outside of Piccadilly. We've seen for the last 7 years. Where's the next 5-10 years? Where do you see it heading now currently?
As a city?
Yeah, just as within sort of the Manchester tech ecosystem. I was a bit about right.
So yeah, I can't see it shrinking. I think it's only going to continue. I think what I may see is probably on a slightly lesser trajectory. But compared to some of the phenomenal growth that we have experienced, but I can definitely see that it's already got cemented its position now as that sort of second tech capital in the UK, and I think more and more companies will want to come here. They will want to tap into the experience and the tech community that's already been developed here.
Yeah, and I think we're just talking about central Manchester. There's so many good companies and businesses in Cheshire and Chester, across Greater Manchester. Obviously, you've got AO in Bolton. So, like, as the Manchester hub at the centre, what we're talking about becomes more congregated and built up, is only going to expand the nucleus, I suppose, which there's so much more room, even like Stockport. Like, there's businesses all around there. They've got the big data centres being built, I believe. So, it's just, in theory, it could just grow and grow and grow. I get bigger and bigger and bigger, but at the minute, it still feels like it's exciting place to be. Yeah, and then from a tech perspective, then, so less on Manchester, but more of the general tech side of thing. What excites you for the future?
That's a $1 million question.
Yeah, but that's why I'm asking $1 million man.
So I think if you ask anyone what's the hottest ticket in town at the moment, it's going to be AI.
Yeah.
But I do think that AI is going to be huge. It's already quickly sort of got cemented itself into a lot of organizations. But I think the thing that I'd be quite keen to look out for really will be the governance side of AI. I think it's an area that doesn't get talked about that much. Yeah. And I'll be quite keen to see what plays out over the next few years. How many companies have rushed to use and implement technology they don't fully understand because it's become the hottest ticket in town, and then may use it in inappropriate ways that further down the line could result in lawsuits or could end up with just generally poor experiences for them as an organization. So I think it's an interesting space between the art of the possible and all of the wonderful things that we believe that it's going to give us, but also the pragmatic side of what's going to fall out of it as well.
So how do you feel it's going to affect consultancy specifically then with the use of AI? Because obviously I appreciate it's across everything. Like everything's going to be affected by AI, but particularly within the consultancy world, which you sort of live and breathe. Do you think they'll have an impact at all, or well, obviously it will have an impact. What sort of impact do you think it will have? Sorry.
Yeah, I think it will have a huge impact, and we're already starting to see that. So engineers are already starting to find ways that they can use AI to go faster, to be more productive, to improve quality. So I think the key thing about sort of how people see AI is it's not that it erodes or gets rid of roles. It actually enables you to shift your focus onto the things that matter more. And I think the key thing for me is if you have engineers that are not wrestling with the technology so much because AI is able to support them, or if they're working with a legacy code base, it's able to give them better advice and better guidance in terms of how things may have been constructed, they shift their focus more into what's the real value they're trying to release in the first place, what's the right kind of solution for their clients. So it's all about shifts. It's not about complete replacement. So I think some circles are suggesting the idea that you can get rid of entire engineering teams, AI will just take over, but I actually think it will be lesser than that. I think it will be that it will take away all the boring stuff, all the things that we wrestle with and gripe about, and actually gives the freedom to actually focus on the things that really matter. So I think that's going to be the biggest shift.
Yeah, so do less, but so do more with less.
Yeah, and I think what we may see as well is across the industry, what you may find is that you're gonna see more of a shift from sort of larger teams to smaller, more dynamic teams supported and surrounded by AI to help them with much more focus in terms of outcomes rather than outputs. And I think that's a big shift.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people think it's just going to cut jobs and increase margins, where personally I don't feel like we're always going to need that people element. But as you said, just make it more streamlined. And then the final question then, what is your sort of tech predictions for the next 12 months? Something you feel that may happen, could happen, will happen? And if you look back and sort of go, well, yeah, great, or I was miles off.
I think over the next 12 months, I think it'd be interesting to see how many companies start to roll back or downplay some of those AI initiatives. And start thinking instead about sort of more leaner sort of development efforts. So rather than using AI as a panacea, it's going to solve all their problems, actually just look at how they actually work and try and optimize, and AI then augments that. So I think that'll be something I'll be keeping an eye on. How many people think that it's going to be using those things, but actually that's not going to materialize and they're still going to have to do some work.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there'll be a big backtrack. I'm not sure it's the right phrase, whereas a lot of companies have gone in, we need to do AI because my competitor is, but without actually understanding the reason why. And I suppose that circles all the way back to what you said at the start, is from a delivery perspective, is being able to understand the reasons why and be able to have those conversations, which maybe AI won't be able to do like someone like yourself.
I think you're always going to need creatives. You're always going to need people that really understand tech, the art of possible, and what great design looks like. So they're thinking about product. AI is, I'm not seeing that it's replacing that creative element yet. So I think, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens. So, and like I say, people start to roll back some of their expectations in terms of plans they may have made and the reality.
Yeah, nice. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Obviously, we've got a great quote. This is Manchester. We do things differently. That I'm sure we can get printed on some t-shirts. But I really appreciate your coming and yeah.
Yeah, you could thank Tony Wilson for that. But
Cheers. Mate.